Hey everyone, it is great to see you today in Read Through the Word. It is August the 6th, and we are entering into an exciting new book of the Bible, the book of Daniel. And we see, and I have a smile on my face, but then I'm going to say this next thing is not something to smile about. Because in this book, we see the sovereign will of the Lord for his people come to fruition. We see it happening. He has warned them. He has told them, you know what, this is coming. Turn back to me. You have disobeyed me. You're an idolatrous nation. You're unfaithful. You're a prostitute. He's called them all kinds of names, right? And some of them I know has taken us back. Some of these prophecies have taken us aback, and we're like, oh my, will he really do this? Yes, he really is going to do this. And we see it playing out here in the rule of King Nebuchadnezzar. I call him King Nebi, just as for a little short nickname. But we see God's will, the sovereignty of God's will play out here. He will do what he says he's going to do. And discipline from a loving father is a sign of love. And that's what he's doing with his children. But Daniel is this young Jewish man of great nobility. We don't really know exactly a lot about him other than he was of nobility. He was born in Jerusalem, but he was transported to Babylon because he was a young man. He was of means. He had training of what it's like to be a young boy of means. He was strong. He was fit. He was handsome. All of these characteristics are what King Nebi wanted in his servanthood. So he was transported to Babylon, and we just don't know a lot about him up to this point. And we see that he is a young man. We don't even really know. I did research and I couldn't find his age. If someone else can find his age, please let us know. But I just did some digging and I couldn't find his even approximate age. So I'm guessing young adult, late teen, young adult, possibly around the age of Joseph, maybe when he was carried off and sold by his brothers. But he was a young man, and we see at this very onset of this chronicle of his life and life in Babylon for him, a young Jewish committed believer of Yahweh and follower of Yahweh, what it's like to have a life of uncompromised faithfulness to God. Wiersbe says this: he was a man of personal integrity who had nothing to fear because he feared the Lord and served him. He basically was determined to give God his best. Uncompromised faithfulness. And it's laid out right here in the very first chapter of what kind of man that King Nebuchadnezzar was getting in his, to be in his service in his palace. He's not the first example. We've had Joseph in Egypt. We had Esther in Persia. And now we have Daniel in Babylon. Examples of people who are determined to give God their best. To be faithful because we fear and serve God. And we don't have to fear anything else. We don't have to compromise not giving God our best and worried about what's going to happen if we do, because God, we fear and love and serve God. Daniel had a lot to complain about. If anyone had anything to complain about, it would have been Daniel and his friends by their Babylonian names, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, because they were taken out of the security of their norm. They were given a new name that was contrary to their original name, and they were forced to learn and live in a new way of life. They didn't have a choice. They did not have a choice. But he went right along with everything. He remained steadfast and faithful to God. We see that because he rejected with respect the Babylonian ways, and he respected his oppressor and oppressors. And because he did that, he caught the eye of the guard. And he begins to influence them from the onset when he refuses to follow the Babylonian ways. And he doesn't do it in a disrespectful way. He's very respectful. And it made me ask and wonder this thought. Rather than complaining about where we are, let's ask God to use us where we are. And this is so easy to say. It really is. A lot easier to say than it is to do. I realize that. But if we can rise above our raw and uncomfortable circumstances and say to God, for whatever reason I am here, if I'm not supposed to be here, I'm going to trust you until you remove me. But if I am supposed to be here, this is a product of judgment of God's people that Daniel is here, so he's obviously supposed to be there, then I'm going to do my best to represent you in everything that I say and everything that I do. And what if we showed respect to those that are in our place and in our space that we don't want to be in right now? Doing something we don't want to do. What if we showed everyone respect? What if we served them rather than talked about them or complained about them? What if we prayed for them? What if we brought them small gifts or tokens of kindness, generosity? You know, a breakfast pound cake goes a long way. It really does. Charles Spurgeon said this: I think that a Christian man should be willing to be tried. He should be pleased to let his religion be put to the test. I don't know if being pleased and being willing are words that I would use to describe some of the situations that I have been placed in. But I will say, being tested did demonstrate my faith. Sometimes in a great way, my faith was demonstrated, and sometimes my faith was demonstrated in not such a great way. Sometimes I didn't represent God well, and sometimes I did. But the testing was good for me. I will say that. So I just want to encourage you to stay steadfast and be faithful to God and give Him your best wherever you are. And use Daniel as a great example of that. We'll see you next time on Read Through the Word.